Hello everybody, thanks very much for joining us for the second free practice session at the final weekend of DTM 2024 and the championship decider. We're here at Hockenheim. It is just after 3:40 p.m. in the afternoon, and in less than 5 minutes time we're going to get the second free practice session underway, which will last for 45 minutes as ever this year, slightly shorter than the first free practice session which we had a few hours ago and which ran for nearly an hour. With a wet track this morning, Hockenheimring Nguyen was quickest in the wet in the Manthey EMA Porsche, set a lap time late on to go top of the timesheet, a 1 minute 48.728. He pipped Mirko Bortolotti, the championship leader, into second place. The gap only 47 thousandths of a second between the Porsche and the Lamborghini. And then it was the driver second in the championship, Kelvin van der Linde, who was third quickest in the Abt Sportsline Audi. The last weekend aboard an Audi for Kelvin van der Linde, the last weekend at Abt Sportsline and Audi will partner together after 25 years in the DTM, with Lamborghini, the new chosen steed for the most successful team on the grid, the Abt Sportsline team for 2025 and beyond. So Kelvin van der Linde, third quickest with a 1:48.888, just over a tenth and a half between Nguyen, Bortolotti and van der Linde. Lucas Auer was fourth, Jack Aitken was fifth, and Thomas Preining was sixth, but he was complaining about the handling of his car in the wet. There then is the championship situation. 56 points available tomorrow and on Sunday, and only 20 points between Mirko Bortolotti, Kelvin van der Linde and Maro Engel, all three drivers looking to become DTM champions for the first time. Here at Hockenheim, it is fairly mild. It's grey and overcast for this time of year. That's normal. It's a bit warmer than it normally is at this time of year, but we've still got a damp track. Now, the rain has sort of eased up. We've only had showers and scatters of rain this afternoon, and it's kind of eased up now, and there's a dry line that's formed out on the track as I look at from the commentary box window. It's just under 15 degrees Celsius, so fairly warm as well, and it's going to be a busy session this, I think, because there's a chance that by the end of the session, so maybe even halfway through the session, we're going to have a dry track and some dry running. And if that's the case, it will be the only dry running that the drivers and the championship contenders will get before we go head first into qualifying tomorrow morning to set the grid for the first race of the weekend. It's already pretty busy here in the grandstands. Lots of people walking in and around the paddock here at Hockenheim, and the fans all set for what's going to be a cracking weekend of race action. There are other championships still up for grabs as well. Schubert Motorsport lead the team standings. They're three BMW drivers. They're 39 points clear of Abt Sportsline, with 90 points still up for grabs. You count the points from the top two drivers in your team in each of the races. No points for the qualifying sessions. Winwood Racing are third, 52 points behind, and SSR Performance and Team HRT are also mathematically still in with a chance of winning the team's championship here this weekend. Manufacturers Championship still up for grabs as well, as is the pit stop challenge for the teams that make the quickest pit stops during the course of a weekend, with the fastest three awarded points in each race. We'll talk more about that as the weekend goes on, but there you can see cars just being pushed out of the garages now, ready to go into this free practice session. My name's Chris Hartley. I'm up here in the commentary box overlooking the action for the rest of the weekend, and alongside me it's Brian Oliver. And Brian, free practice 2 I think is going to be pretty hectic because they need to get out there and get some dry running in before qualifying.
Yes, it was a fascinating session this morning in the wet, and as you say, there is a dry line that is appearing on the track. Now, my weather forecast says it's going to stay dry. Apparently, Arjun reckons it's going to rain, so it's Miney versus Oliver here. I'm not competitive, I promise, but it looks like it should be a dry session. As you say, this is going to be a hectic 45 minutes because a lot of the stuff they might have wanted to have done in free practice 1 this morning, they haven't been able to do. It is the last free practice of the year, the very last opportunity to get everything set up for the final race weekend of the year. So I think a few kind of nervous faces around the place, a lot of work to do. This could be a very, very interesting 45 minutes.
Got to get those wing mirrors adjusted and correct as well. Mirko Bortolotti, gone this way a bit, that way a bit, gone up a bit, down a bit. There you go. It's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be perfect this weekend with so much at stake. So for now, although it's grey, it's a bit brighter than it was, and there's, I don't think, any light rain coming down at the moment. I spoke to Arjun Miney a few hours ago, and he reckoned it was still going to be damp for this session. It certainly still is damp on the racing line. But if no more rain comes, then, as I say, we might get a bit of dry running. While the cars go out onto the circuit, something to make you aware of that's launching this weekend is that there's a new DTM logo, which is officially going to come out on Monday and will be used from Monday onwards. But out in the paddock, there's a big DTM sign where all the fans get their photos taken by this massive yellow DTM 3D sign that we have in the paddock, and that unveiled today with the new designed logo. It's still got the 3 DTM letters, are still in the yellow colour scheme, but there's been some changes to the styling of it now. It's got some cutouts in it. It's got more kind of sleek aerodynamic curves to reflect the speed of the championship. So it's kind of a modern look, but it also tries to embody the history of the championship. So it's in the paddock for fans here this weekend to see. We'll get to see it, I think, on the TV coverage tomorrow, because at 1:20 p.m, just after we go on air for the start of the race, a brave Red Bull skydiver is going to land on the grass next to the start grid with the new DTM logo for everybody to see. So that's news coming through, and it will be used, the new logo, officially, permanently from Monday onwards.
Well, that's exciting. I like the idea of it being aerodynamic as well to reflect where we're going. That's so cool. Looking forward to that. I thought you were going to say that we were going to be exploding the old DTM, the big letters or something, but clearly not. But it's great because the ADAC are constantly pushing forwards with DTM, always looking to see what they're going to do next. We've got the calendar for next year unveiled as well. But you just get the feeling that ADAC are always looking to improve, looking to make the show slicker. I know they have lots of exciting plans, not just with DTM, but with GT Masters, GT4, and everything else that they promote.
Yeah, they're always looking forwards in terms of the technology that's used as well, and to try and be more and more sustainable as the seasons go on. The cars currently run on a 50% sustainable fuel, which means that half of the contents of the fuel are sustainable fuel elements, recyclable fuel elements. But they are looking, and it might even happen next year, but we'll have to wait and see. Thomas Voss is certainly looking into it, the boss of the ADAC who run the championship, maybe even moving towards a 100% sustainable fuel. The big question is who can supply us with, and wait for this is how much fuel they use across the course of a season. 350,000 litres of fuel over the season, and in a consistent quality that all the vehicles can handle. That's the question that the ADAC boss, Thomas Voss, is asking, because of course you've got, as Brian was saying in free practice 1, all these different types of engines. Some are turbo, some are normally aspirated, different types of car, and it's got to work with all of the brands that are used in the championship. But the positive news is that 5 or 6 companies have come back to the ADAC and said, look, we can do this, we can supply this. So I think, Brian, it is something that's definitely on the near horizon. Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? And they've been running the 50% sustainable components with the GT Masters formula for a few years, but yeah, 100% is the goal. And it's not just the cars, they're also looking to encourage the teams to use sustainable fuels when transporting to the tracks, using old cooking fat and all the rest of it, and looking at every area. We've also seen it outside of fuels. They've eliminated plastic bottles in the paddock. You cannot get a plastic bottle for love or money. We now have pumps where you can fill up your water bottles with sparkling water, with hot water. Really great stuff. Also, you've seen the graphic during the races, donating money for clean drinking water in Tanzania and the Gambia for every lap completed. Just so many areas where the ADAC are pushing forwards with sustainability, the environment, and just looking after this world that we live in.
That's right, yeah. BWT, Best Water Technology, who are long-time partners of the ADAC, are very much involved with that as well. And as you say, you've got these water dispensers all the way around the paddock, even in the TV compound where we're based as well. You get all of that. But Brian's got his very special own dispenser, which gives champagne and
That explains the commentary. Now that's the answer.
Right, this track should be getting quicker and quicker. It's whether you're going to go with wets or slicks. Most of them, as you can see from the graphic, have gone with slicks, and it's probably the right thing to do. But be careful, stray off line, as we saw earlier. Turn 17, get wide there, get off onto the drag strip, and it is treacherous. Holds the standing water. and he's super slippery anyway. So on the line, fine, but if you go off the line on slick tyres, tricky. A couple on wets, but he's in the pits now. Kelvin van der Linde and Ben Durr and Bortolotti. I think he's the only one on the track, actually on the track at the moment with wets. Everybody else has gone with slick tyres. The best lap time this morning was 1:48.7, and we've already beaten that handsomely with a 1:47.506 for Maro Engel, who you're on board with now.
The weather tyres, I really personally see no advantage to running on them at the moment, unless you have a forecast that's different to ours, because it is, in theory, going to be getting drier from this point onwards, and you can see that dry line. But as you already say, with this slick tyres, if you go offline, you are going to be on ice, and it could put you on the back foot. Really important in this, the final free practice session of the year, not to be sticking it in the barriers, not to be having traumas, because the next time these cars are on track, it will be for quali. And for 3 drivers in particular, it's going to be a very, very important qualifying session, and grid position is very important. Is that Nicky Tim lighting up the tyres, almost getting the car, it was almost 90 degrees to the garage there as he came out onto the fast lane.
I think that's a case of trying to mop up the pit box, isn't it? Make that, get rid of as much dampness on the surface as you can by lighting up the tyres. Back on board then with Maro Engel, all of our championship contenders, and another 3 drivers besides that will carry on board cameras this weekend, so it's going to give us real insight into how things are going. Maro Engel was only 13th quickest and had a very, very rare spin in the first free practice session in the wet. Did a 720, went around twice. That was at turn 17. He certainly wasn't the only one to have troubles at that corner. No damage done, didn't hit anything, got going again, but he won't be too concerned about the pace of the car in the wet, given that it's not supposed to rain tomorrow or on Sunday. So Maro Engel trying to catch up 20 points, only 56 available. You get the feeling, Brian, that realistically he's going to have to get his first win of the season at some point this weekend if he's to win the championship. He's been super consistent. He's got loads of podiums this year with 7, but he hasn't yet got a win.
He is the specialist of getting very close to championship titles without actually taking a win. And yes, he needs a win. He also needs a bit of bad luck for Mirko Bortolotti and Kelvin van der Linde. It's not entirely in his hands, but all he can do is get that car up at the front as best he can and fight for a podium, potentially a win, and hope that his contenders fall by the wayside. And there's every opportunity for that, because here in the DTM, there are so many random elements.
Yeah, and it won't affect qualifying, but it will affect the cars in the race. The top 3 from the previous race carry success ballast going into the next race. 20 kilograms for whoever won, 10 kilograms for whoever was second, and 5 for whoever was third. Rarely this season has there been one of the cars involved in the championship fight that hasn't carried the success ballast, usually 1 or 2 of them. But actually, for tomorrow's race, none of the championship contenders are going to carry the success ballast because they didn't finish in the top 3. The winner of the race on Sunday last time out was René Rast at the Red Bull Ring. Thomas Preining, the champion of last year, was second, and Arjun Maini was third. He had a best weekend ever in the DTM. Arjun, as I said, I spoke to him earlier on, and he said, yes, I was pretty disappointed with that first 3rd place because, you know, you're on pole position, you dream of your first race victory. But I was really, really pleased with the 3rd place that I got coming from further down the order in race 2. So see how Arjun gets on. The Mercedes are a bit renowned for not being able to switch their tyres on quite as quickly, which has perhaps been a bit of an issue in qualifying. It certainly was something that maybe contributed to some poor qualifying performances in the first half of the season for Maro Engel, but second half of the season, it's been day and night. It's been much, much better at qualifying by and large.
This is probably why Thomas Jaeger of Mercedes-AMG has been advocating tyre warmers for qualifying all season long. He's saying that we use up a lot of fuel and a lot of brakes and a lot of tyres getting the tyres up to temperature. It's actually better for the environment if we put tyre blankets on. That's an interesting approach to that. Well, Arjun Maini was clearly listening because he's just now gone quickest at 1:42.096. He quite likes this going fast lark. He's been at the top of the timing screens in the last few sessions we've had over the last couple of weekends. He's back there again, but Maro Engel in the fellow Mercedes car has gone quickest in Sector 1, so he's already responding. So 1:42.096 at the moment is the quickest for Arjun Maini, but that looks like it's going to be beaten probably fairly quickly.
Yeah, and on board with Jack Aitken, who's just coming into turn 16. He's on a personal best lap coming out of turn 17. Ferrari about to whiz past the commentary box. Right ahead of him is Nicky Tim in the Lamborghini. Over the line goes Jack Aitken, and he goes to the top of the times. 1 minute 41.932. Bortolotti, absolute best middle sector. Now, the middle sector is the longest sector on the lap. Sector 1, at the moment, he's taking around about 22 seconds. Sector 2 is more than double the length, about 47.5 seconds. And Sector 3, third bit of the lap, takes about 31 seconds currently. So Bortolotti goes third quickest overall, but Maro Engel, coming out of the last turn now, lets the car drift out onto the curbs, builds up the speed, goes over the line and goes quickest. So 141.230. Lucas Auer's gone quickly as well. He's gone second, so Aitken down to third already. Bortolotti fourth. Miney, who was fastest, what, a minute ago, is now fifth.
Yeah, the Mercedes are suddenly looking very dialed in, aren't they? Here comes Arjun Miney, so he's done a personal best in Sector 1, a best of anybody in Sector 2. He's going to cross the line now, stop the clock, and he will be a 141.583, so that puts him up to P2.
Make a good quali session, this, wouldn't it?
It's great,
A drying track, everybody getting quicker and quicker. A replay of Luca Exler just locking up under braking, missing the apex, going deep. See how wet it is off the track still, so has to be super careful on the slick tyres. Gathers it all back together and rejoins on the exit to the Sachs curve. So Luca Exler was quickest in a wet private test that some drivers took part in last Tuesday. Engel's got absolute best in the first sector once again, just slows the car down as he makes his way through turn 8 into the right at turn 9 and turn 10 now, just coming towards the end of the second sector. Accelerates up to 220 kilometres an hour. Personal best through that sector, slows down to 165, turns right with the Mobil 1 curver. And then we go to Lucas Auer, who last weekend won the GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Cup alongside Maro Engel for Team Winwood. Team Winwood got the Teams Championship as well. So they're on positive form coming into this weekend, and Lucas Auer goes second. So the two GT World Challenge Europe champions, newly crowned, are first and second.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Bit of teamwork there. There are 4 Mercedes AMG cars in this session, and they occupy the top 4 places in the timing. We have seen BOP changes overnight before now, and I wonder whether there might be some questions asked before tomorrow. But great to see Jules Gounon there. Jules Gounon, who is sitting in for Lucas Stoltz, who's unwell this weekend. We say get well soon, Lucas Stoltz. But great to have Jules Gounon. Now, René Rast has ruined the Mercedes party by bumping his BMW up into P3. Make that P4 because who's gone quickest? Maro Engel at the top, Arjun Miney second, and Lucas Auer. So the Mercedes 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Going great guns in this on this drying track, aren't they? Relative speed and time then. So 1 minute 40.8 is our best. The qualifying lap record is a 136.4 set by Lucas Auer in a Mercedes in 2022. Free practice 2 last year, which was dry, Kelvin van der Linde did a 138.591. So perhaps be looking at more that sort of time, a 138, 139. Comparable lap time, and they're never going to go as quick in free practice, of course, as they do when we get to qualifying trim. Lucas Auer's just on the absolute best middle sector, watching Jack Aitken, who was on the ragged edge coming out through turn 17. Sub-curver, goes across the line, goes second quickest in the Ferrari with a 140.043. Here comes Lucas Auer, though. This could be a new benchmark time. He goes over the line. He does indeed go quickest, not by much, but by enough. 1 minute 40.833, 39 thousandths quicker than Maro Engel, and that could be super useful, having a quick teammate, dialed-in teammate for Maro Engel in his bid to try and win the championship this weekend.
Well, Maro Engel's just eclipsed that. He's gone to the top at 140.711, so the times are tumbling pretty well with every lap. It was interesting with Jack Aitken. He's been up somewhere near the top the whole time, but I haven't seen him go purple at any point. And I think it is just consistency across all 3 of the sectors, being quick across all 3 of the sectors. Not necessarily quickest of all, which gets you up there. But Jack Aitken now down into P3, but clearly they've got some pace in that Ferrari.
Nice wide, dry line there, isn't there, as your challenge and Gouin travel through, followed by Franck Pereira, who's standing in once again in the gold liveried Grasso Racing Team Lamborghini. Christian Engelhardt. Christian, who for the Grasso Racing Team was on the podium here on the Saturday of last year at Hockenheim. So Gwen just making his way in through turn 16 into the sud curve now, 130 kilometers an hour, building up the speed out of third gear, up to fourth gear, up to fifth gear, going over the line. He'll get up to over 200 kilometers an hour before he gets to the line, and it's 141.1 for him. That puts him sixth quickest. Ricardo Feller has gone fourth quickest, and we can hear from Hockenheimring.
So your quickest sector 1 is a 22.4. Maros is a 21.9. I mean, I don't understand, because in the other sectors you're there. And you're still P3 overall, which is miraculous if you lose 5 tenths in one sector.
How rude.
That's given away. So he's saying to Hockenheimring,
oh, we got Sheldon van der Linde.
It's gone off. Yeah, and look, I mean, it's still absolutely soaking wet off the track, isn't it? So he's buried the BMW into the wall and just got the back end of that. Once you go offline there, that's a drag strip, which Brian was explaining earlier on. Is like ice, like an ice rink. You go off there, it's still wet off the track as well. And what did he do? Oh, it sounded like he got a wheel in the gravel, didn't it?
Didn't it?
Just went a bit wide into the corner.
I mean, fortunately, it didn't look like a too heavy an impact. It was big enough, but not enough, I think, to terminate his weekend. I'm sure they'll just drag that back to the pits, get the gravel cleaned out of it, and he'll be back out again, I would guess. But certainly not what they need. Exactly what we were saying in this last free practice session. Well, thumbs up, that's good news. Let's hear from Sheldon first, and then we'll come back to it.
Right, boys, I lost the car.
Sorry, mate, this was very quiet. Repeat, please.
I lost the car.
Don't make me say it again.
yeah, humiliation. It's exactly what we said, though, in this session. It's such an important session, and this will be valuable time lost for Sheldon van der Linde, because they'll have to get the car back to the pits, put some new tyres on it at the very least. This is what it's going to look like from his wing mirror, which I think survived, because I think he hit it with... did he hit it with the wing mirror side? Or that is the side that he hit it with, but... yeah, it wasn't a massive impact, but certainly enough. You can see he actually tried to drive out of it, but wasn't able to get going.
Good thing there, it was completely side on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than going in with the front corner, which probably would have caused more damage. So, it's a big old beefy car, that BMW as well, so hopefully he'll be all right. And he gave the thumbs up to the marshal, who was asking after him, wasn't really caring about the car, just asking Sheldon, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, I'm fine, thumbs up.
They've tested the BMWs twice, haven't they? Because we had another Schubert BMW in free practice 1 with Marco Wittmann on that corner, well, just going into that corner. Exactly the same thing. They had to pick it up and he drove back to the pits in that. But yeah, both BMWs, or 2 of the 3 BMWs, in the wall in pretty well the same corner.
There's Thomas Priding, double winner here last year, double pole position here last year, clinched the title, his first in the DTM on Sunday morning by taking pole position away from Mirko Bortolotti's big rival for the championship by just 6 thousandths of a second, a mega lap, and then wrapped up things with another win in the afternoon. Spoke to Thomas earlier and said, yeah, it's kind of a nice feeling coming into this weekend, because I'm not tense about anything. I'm not worried about the championship. Just here to have fun, just going to race. And he said, yeah, we're going to do our best and just see what we can do out on the track. So a very positive frame of mind from Thomas, who's kept fighting all year long, hasn't he? He's had not necessarily had the quickest car out there at times this year, but he keeps on getting in the points. If he can get in the points the last 2 races of the season this weekend, then he'll have gone for the whole of 2023 and the whole of 2024, finishing in the points in every single race, which is miraculous, really, given how competitive this championship is.
Now you've done it. The Sheldon van der Linde car has been, that was quite surreal with the camera on the roof of the car, see him floating across with the telehandler pulling the BMW back onto the track. But as you can see, he's able to drive off under his own steam, a bit of smoke. I imagine everything is full of gravel. They'll probably have to sweep the inside of that car out at some point, but this is what it looked like, the replay, when he came into that turn 16. You see the back end stepped out, and he just headed for to the scene of the accident. Not a lot he could do once that back end was gone, and then he tried to get it out, but the gravel trap doing exactly what it's meant to do, trapping the car, but it did mean he was unable to get out under his own steam. But there is large sections of the gravel trap now on the runoff area leading into turn 16.
Full course yellow about to end within the next few seconds. There's the green flag, so we'll get back up to full speed with just over 25 minutes left on the clock in this 45-minute session. And they can see in the background of the marshal's post there the striped red and yellow flag. That's a slippery surface flag, which might be out if so that gravel is brought onto the circuit at points in this session, which is likely to happen. On board then, once again, with Thomas Preining, who was on the team radio earlier on in free practice one, saying there's something wrong with the car. It's got no grip, and he was at a couple of moments, a couple of big wide moments, and looked to be fighting the car, but still put some decent lap times in the end. So see how he gets on. He's back in 12th place at the moment. Maro and Lucas out of the top two. In fact, the top three are all Mercedes. Jules Gounon improved just before we had that incident. And Hockenheimring has slipped back now to 7th place overall. I think he had a lap time taken away, yeah, he did, for track limits, which is why he's dropped back down the order a bit. And we were about to talk about his team radio, weren't we, Hockenheimring, when Sheldon van der Linde went off. So his race engineer saying you're giving away half a second in the first sector, which is a lot in a lap to give away half a second, but to give away half a second in a sector which only takes 22 seconds to get through, it's a lot of time he's losing there. And his race engineer saying, I can't understand why you're losing half a second to Maro Engel through there, but yet you're mega everywhere else, and somehow miraculously you're still quick overall.
That was in sector 1, wasn't it? Which is the fastest section. We've got the Parabolica, which is across turn 2, which is taken absolutely flat out, and then they head in towards the hairpin, which is a turn 6. Sorry, Parabolica is turn 5, taken absolutely flat out. So yeah, but that is in sector 1. I'm just looking to see where that finishes. That's on the exit of turn 4, yeah. Isn't it? So yeah, it is
so it's just
a little bit technical there. So
it's just the Nordkurve. Fast, yeah. Loads of runoff, go through that, 4th gear, 180 kilometres an hour, and then turn 2, the Bernie Eccleston curve, which is hard on the brakes, 2nd gear, 80 kilometres an hour, a right-hander, tight right-hander, and then a kind of right-left flick through turns 3 and 4. That's where it ends. It's only really 2 corners and a little easy exit to turns 3 and 4. So a bit weird that he's losing that much time through there, really, because it's not, huge amounts of input the driver would be able to make there, I wouldn't have thought, compared to each other.
And a lot of drivers are pushing it into turn 1. That is where all the track limit infringement warnings have been. Some notable names in there, none more so than Mirko Bortolotti. At least I thought I saw. Maybe that was Nicky Tim I saw in there. But quite a few names exceeding the track limits into turn 1. Yeah, it was Nicky Tim, not Mirko Bortolotti, beg your pardon. But into turn 1, it's getting around that first corner. And this is the session, I guess, where they're exploring the limits of the track adhesions, seeing how far they can push it without losing the lap, because of course tomorrow morning in qualifying, if you exceed track limits, you're going to lose the lap that you're on, and that could be pretty terminal.
Arjun sorted out the first sector, so he did a personal best first sector last time around, and overall got his best lap of the sessions. He's back up to 2nd place, but Jules Gounon in the black number 4 at Mercedes, the HRT car, absolute best first sector, 21.881 seconds. 8 on the graphic, goes purple. I'd say absolute best sector. If it's green, it's a personal best. Green's all round for Kelvin van der Linde, the driver 2nd in the championship, quickest of all now, 140.709 seconds. Let's see how about Jules Gounon. He's just come through the end of the 2nd sector, and the 2nd sector time is good as well, 46.7, a personal best, and only, 19 thousandths slower than the absolute best 2nd sector, which has been set by Ian Nguyen. So Jules Gounon, the 3-time Bathurst 12-hour winner, the double Spa 24-hour winner, the 2-time GT World Challenge Endurance champion. Here he is, the Andorran, the French driver based in Andorra, pushes it to the ragged edge as he comes out of the final turn, goes over the line and goes 2nd quickest, 140.598, 89 thousandths of a second behind the new quickest time, which just ahead of him on the road was set by the Porsche driver, Ian Nguyen.
Good job by Ian Nguyen, who seems to love these conditions. There are many, many people who have been waiting a long time to see the name Jules Gounon in DTM, and finally they get rewarded. I'm hoping it's not going to be the last time that we'll see him back again next year or sometime in the future. One of the really mega talented drivers in the world of GT racing. Great to finally have him on the grid. Another very talented driver, though, has jumped ahead of him in the timings, and that is René Rast up to P2 in the BMW, 140.535.
Cutting back to Kelvin van der Linde. Has he had a moment? He just, as the camera picked him up, just looked like maybe it was just the way we came back to him, but just looked like he was slightly out of line with where you'd normally expect him to be. It's what the lap time is like. Yeah, it's not great. He's at 142.4. So Guin quickest, Rast second quickest with a 140.535. Miney third with a 145.90, and Guin on fourth with a 145.98. 89 thousandths between the top four drivers. And then we've also had Clement Schmidt really improving as well in the McLaren, up to fifth place, 1 minute 40.694. Kelvin van der Linde, nothing wrong with the car because he's just done the absolute best first sector, 21.683.
So clearly showing his intent there as he heads in towards Sector 2. So we had that slightly off lap the previous time around, but now Kelvin van der Linde has turned the wick up once again. There's Arjun Maini, also personal bests in Sector 1 and at Sector 2. He heads into turn 16. We look down, there's that shiny drag strip up towards turn 17 and out onto the pit straight. Then it's full beans as he exits turn 17 to cross the line, and he stops the clock, and it's going to be a 140.341. So it's a new benchmark from Arjun Maini.
Yeah, Guin had gone even quicker than he'd gone before, just prior to that, so 140.408. And then Maini pipping him by 67 thousandths of a second. But van der Linde on a good lap. Absolute best first sector, personal best second sector. Rast with the absolute best middle sector, though, which is the key sector. Goes quickest of all, and he's the first driver to break the 1 minute 40 barrier. 139.582 for the three-time champion René Rast. Here comes Kelvin van der Linde, though, pushing hard in the Audi R8, and it's last hurrah this weekend here at Hockenheim. He accelerates out of turn 17, goes for the line, and puts in a good time, 140.109. Second quickest. So the BMW of René Rast, now followed by the Audi of Kelvin van der Linde, then the Mercedes of Arjun Maini, then the McLaren of Clement Schmidt, and then it's the Porsche of Arjun Guin, which was first about 90 seconds ago and is now suddenly down to fifth place.
When the track is drying, you don't have to come tumbling down the order quickly as the times continue to get shorter and shorter. So Jules Gounon, personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Arjun Maini, personal best in Sector 1, but not in Sector 2. Mirko Bortolotti at the moment is down in P16. He's at 141.534 as Jules Gounon peels off into the pit lane. So he abandons that lap. Also coming in is Arjun Guin just behind him, just in front of him. Yes, Arjun Maini still out on track, though, looking to improve. Here he comes out of turn 17, out across the line as Kelvin van der Linde goes quickest in Sector 1. Arjun Maini still in fourth place, the 140.491. But Kelvin van der Linde, the quickest of anybody in Sector 1.
Yeah, and not long ago, his teammate in the number 7 AB Sportsline Audi, Ricardo Feller, but in his best lap of the session to go slightly quicker than his teammate with a 139.788. So he's second at the moment, Ricardo. He's had a disappointing season. He came into this weekend 12 months ago, third in the championship with the chance of winning the championship. It didn't quite go his way, but he had an excellent second full season in the championship. But again, I caught up with him after free practice 1, and a bit like Thomas Preinig, he said, it's very different this year. You know, I'm not involved in the fight. He said, what I don't want to do is get involved and affect the championship. They need to get on and do their own thing. I'm just here to do my race, is what he said. And yeah, he was saying that they've had some issues with his car. He hasn't been able to test his car much this year because lots of the emphasis obviously has gone on to Kelvin van der Linde. And he said, but we've sorted a few things out on it, and it's a lot better for me to drive now. So he's looked more like the Ricardo Feller that we were used to in 2023. And at the start of this year as well. It was only after the first couple of rounds that things sort of faded away for him. But he seems to be right back on it now, which is great to see.
It really is. And they've also changed both of his race engineers prior to the Red Bull Ring, which apt to always swapping things around, looking to improve. And they believe that changing his race engineers going into the Red Bull Ring saw a big improvement in his pace. In fact, he qualified ahead of Kelvin van der Linde. Mirko Bortolotti, as you can see, personal best in Sector 1, overall best in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2. He's into the Sachs curve now, so that'll be then towards turn 16 to complete this lap. But Mirko Bortolotti clearly looking to respond, having been towards the bottom of the timing screens coming into this, and now he's turned the wick up, he's out onto the pit straight, and his foot now absolutely flat as he crosses the line. Mirko Bortolotti at 1:39.097, he goes the quickest of all.
That will feel good, won't it, today? I mean, nothing for it, no points for it, no grid positions for it, but it's just going into tomorrow feeling good with the car. Okay, it's kind of dry now, it's pretty much dry, and we've got a car that works, we're in a good place, and Bortolotti, quickest of all, with a 1:39.097, not just by a little bit, but by a huge amount, nearly half a second quicker than the next best, which is René Rast. And then the two Audis of Vella and Van der Linde for third and fourth, the Mercedes of Arjen Meiney in fifth, the McLaren of Clement Schmidt an excellent sixth, and then the Porsche of Guin, the Lamborghini of Tim, the Porsche of Preining, and the Mercedes of Gunon also in the top 10, and Ricardo Vella going through with another good lap time. His best so far, 1:39.7 dead. He stays third, but he's got the gap down a little bit more.
Just got 14.25 minutes remaining of this free practice session, and then the next time we see these cars on track, it will be for the penultimate qualifying session of the season. A nice clear track in front of René Rast, a nice dry line. He's not set the screens alight on this lap, but probably building a temperature back into the tyres as he gives it another push the next time around. He's heading in towards turn 16 at the moment, picking up the apex onto turn 17 and then out onto the pit straight. So we'll see what he can do. At the moment, he's P2, 1:39.582. But Mirko Bortolotti's quick time, getting on for half a second quicker than René Rast. That's how quick Bortolotti is at the moment.
Yeah, and Borto has been mega in qualifying this year, hasn't he? He's been the best qualifier on average. Fourth on the grid is his average. He's had 2 pole positions, but he's been in the top 3 this season. He's been fastest twice, second quickest 4 times, and third quickest 3 times. So 9 times he's scored points. He's got 17 points from qualifying now this year, qualifying in the top 3. You're going to get 16 points for finishing third. So he's basically got a free podium in terms of points out of all the qualifying performances. But far and away the biggest point scorer in qualifying this year. 17 points for him. Kelvin van der Linde has scored 8 points. So that's a big old difference, isn't it? 9 points, bearing in mind he's only 15 points clear in the championship.
Well, that is being able to race an extra race almost, isn't it? I mean, that is phenomenal to be able to do that and to get that many points just in qualifying. And it's consistency, not just in the racing, but in the qualifying that wins championships. And Mirko Bortolotti has been incredibly consistent.
Yeah, and so Maro Engel struggled at the start of the season in qualifying with the teams that made a few errors, didn't get a few things right, but it massively improved the second half of the season. He scored 5 points from qualifying, so that's 12 fewer than Bortolotti. He's 20 behind, so eradicate that. In terms of racing, he's only 8 points behind, but it has been a big improvement with a bit of a glitch last time out of the Red Bull Ring where he only qualified 13th, but Maro Engel, the first 6 qualifying sessions had a best of 10th. He had a 10th, a 12th, a 13th, a 17th, an 18th and a 19th. But after that, Norris Ring onwards, top 7 in all but one of the sessions. And he's had a pole position, he's had 2 top 3s, just that one sort of glitch last time out with the 13th at the Red Bull Ring. But it's been way, way better in qualifying for Maro Engel in the second half of the season. Lighting up the tyres is René Rast.
It's wonderful. Wonderful to have that view. We saw him come into the box, we saw them set to work on it, and then you see him lighting up the tyres as he comes out. The team effort here, and a great rehearsal of the pit stops. Dur Motorsport have had to learn how to do competition pit stops, performance pit stops for the first time this year. They're getting to grips with it now, but the team that are running the McLaren in DTM in their debut year in DTM, it's been a big learning curve from them. The last time we saw them on the ADAC circuit, they were in GT4, and this isn't just a step up, it's a leap up, but they've taken it by the scruff of the neck. It's been great to see Ben Dur and Clement Schmidt. It's been great to see the papaya of McLaren on the grid as well.
On average this year, Lucas Auer's pit stops have been the quickest, 6.8 seconds. That's really good from Winwood, isn't it? And Winwood are just behind Manthey EMA in terms of the pit stop challenge this year. So he's averaged 6.8 seconds in all the stops that have counted, not counting the ones where you've had a problem, technical problem or retirement or anything like that. Sheldon van der Linde, second best, 6.9 seconds he's averaged. Then Ian Jingu and Mamantai, 7 seconds dead. But the McLaren's Clement Schmidt, 8.9 seconds, Ben Durr, 9.5 seconds. So you're giving away 2 to 3 seconds per race. It takes a lot of time to get 2 or 3 seconds back on the track, doesn't it? When you look at the field normally, there's only a second covering all of them out on track.
Yeah, it's and we've seen races won and lost in the pits. Trying to find that last 100th of a second, that last 10th, and we've seen errors maybe from team members or people in the pit lane, and it can cost the driver. So it really is a team sport. Isn't it great, by the way, complete tangent, isn't it great to have the drone here following Rene Rast around turn 17 at the moment, struggling to keep up with him, but some great shots from the ADAC drone.
Yeah, looks great, doesn't it, through that final arena section, and which was designed by the same designer, that final arena. It was updated, this part of the circuit, about 22 years ago by John Hockenheimring, who was the designer of the wonderful Suzuka circuit in Japan. So it's a great final section, and we get to see most of it from the commentary box, elevated above the exit to the final turn, and the grandstands all around. When they're full here, and you go up to when it was a Grand Prix circuit, the grandstands around this place can hold 120,000 people. It's a huge venue, isn't it, Hockenheim?
Yeah, we talk about DTM, the massive crowds we've been getting, and we've had record-breaking crowds this year at all the DTM events, and you're like, wow, 50,000, 60,000 people here. They look lost here because there are so many seats. You're like, are there really that many people here? But it is such a big venue with so many seats. But it's been great to see the DTM with its biggest crowds this year, growing every year. A very, very popular series. And if you're in the area of the Hockenheimring this weekend, get yourself down here because you will not be disappointed. It's always spectacular. DTM, GT Masters, GT4, Porsche Carrera Germany, next-gen cars as well. A real spectacle of motorsport.
There's Luca Engstler, I think, has only had 2 track limits warnings in this session. He had Brian counted about 12 in the first free practice session. But Luca, the Liqui Moly sponsored Grasser Racing Team run Lamborghini, currently in 13th place, best lap of the session for him. Sheldon van der Linde has gone back out as well. Here he is after his off, which brought about the full course yellow in the middle of the session, and he's just done a personal best lap as well, and he's about to go better than that. Makes his way into the left-hander at the Sachs curve at second gear, accelerates up to third, 145 kilometers an hour through the left at 14, through the right at 15, already up to 180, and then this is where he lost it earlier. He backs off though, actually, and stays out on track, but tries to give himself a bit of space because ahead of him is one of the McLarens, Clement Schmidt, just going over the line, building up some tyre temperature. So it looks like Sheldon is ramping up here for a qualifying dummy run, I would say, as he pulls the trigger. Also pulling the trigger is this driver from Pereira, absolute best middle sector. So the gold Lamborghini makes its way through turn 17 now, accelerating out of the subcurver, sprinting for the line. Pereira with a personal best in the first sector as well. Breining's just done the absolute best first sector. Can't quite hold it together in the last sector, but Pereira does go 4th quickest.
So Thomas Preining, we saw that purple in Sector 1. Thierry Vermeulen, another who's going quick in Sector 2. So a personal best in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. So Thierry Vermeulen in the Ferrari, but Thomas Preining, man on a mission with 6 3/4 minutes remaining of this, the last free practice session of the year. We've got one-eyed Thierry Vermeulen into turn 16, just hitting the apex of the corner, going as deep as he dare, keeping the traction out of 17 and across the line. This is going to be an improvement for Thierry Vermeulen. He was purple, but that has now been beaten by Rene Rast in Sector 2. Across the line goes Thierry Vermeulen, so he is quickest of all, first into the 138, so 138.989, but is Thomas Preining about to beat that? Because Thomas Preining now heading towards the final corner, turn 17, Rob with Thomas Preining. He sees the pit straight ahead of him, so he's going to cross the line. Surely this is going to be quickest of all. Here he comes, Thomas Preining. It's a 1:30. Look and see what it was. 38.565. We got there in the end.
And his teammates just gone second. 138.9 dead, Brian Nguyen. So the two Porsches kind of picking up where they left off in the dry in 2023. First and second. So they are absolutely flying. And then Vermeulen with that great lap from him as well. 138.989. He's third now. It's 4/10ths down on what Preining just did. That was a mega lap. Nicky Tim has done the absolute best middle sector. Bortolotti comes over the line. Preining's at it again. Absolute best first sector. So Nicky Tim, the next one to keep an eye on in this session. He's just darting into turn 16. Nicely on the curbs there. Into turn 17 he now goes. Picks up the accelerator, comes out of there in third gear. Sprints for the line. And this could be a good one as well. Nicky Tim goes second quickest. 138.829. It's going to be very, very useful for Mirko Bortolotti if Nicky Tim can be up the front with him and helping out, take some points away from his rivals when we get to the racing tomorrow. Kelvin van der Linde is slipping down. He's down to 13th place now. Maro Engel is down to 19th place. This will be a worry to both of them.
We're only about just over half a second off the quickest time in testing last week, which was in the bone dry, and that was Kelvin van der Linde's 137.987. So we're a little over half a second, so 138.565. But the times are coming down as the track dries out. Thomas Preining, once again, personal bests in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he comes back across the line at 138.405.
Yeah, very good from Preining. Not happy with the car in the wet. Doesn't matter. It's going to be dry from now on. At least that's what the forecast says. And the car is absolutely on it in the dry. So too is the 2023 champion. He's been mega in this session, hasn't he? 138.4, only 14 thousandths quicker than his teammate, who's done another personal best though. And Nicky Tim is third, but he's 4/10ths off. But here comes Mirko Bortolotti. Where's he going to end the session? We're still just under 4 minutes to go. Time for a few more laps. He goes quickest by 0.2 of a second. 138.184, as cool as you like.
Gloves off. Meanwhile, Maro Engel has been listening. He's done a personal best in Sector 1 at 21.708, but he's still about 4/10ths off the quickest time of all in that first sector. So Maro Engel looking to improve, but it's probably not going to be enough. Another personal best in Sector 2 at 46.314.
Red flag.
Oh, red flag. So what has occurred? Now, why have we got a red flag? I'm looking out to see if there's anybody stranded.
See anything in the last sector, which is what we can see from the commentary box. But suddenly the red has been thrown. Just looking at the track map, see if any cars
Everybody's moving,
stopped.
I think.
Yeah.
It may be some debris out on track, and they need to get a marshal out there to remove it. But I don't think this session is going to get back going again because there's less than 3 minutes remaining. Now, what has occurred?
In which case, that was perfect timing from Mirko Bortolotti. Have some of that, he says to everybody else. What might be the last lap of the session, quickest lap of the session, 138.184. So, race control message session, will not be resumed. There's only 2.5 minutes left to go.
I'm baffled as to what has caused that, because all the cars are okay. I can only assume it must be debris or something that's on the circuit somewhere, which has caused the red flag to come out. But clearly, they need to get staff to a part of the circuit where there are cars, so you need to get the cars back to the pit lane. Yeah,
so there goes a vehicle out on track there. Ragging it.
Who's number 26? He's not my driver's list.
Nearly lost it then. He's got a quick DTM driver on his tail. It made him pump the accelerator a bit too hard there. So, yeah, I suspect you're right. There's something out on circuit that either debris or stopped. That I can see that vehicle has stopped coming into the right-hander at the Mobile 1 curve at turn 12. So something they're looking at there. Anyway, it means the session is ended slightly prematurely with the championship leader at the top of that board. Going to be at the top of the main board at the end of the weekend, the leaderboard, the championship standings board. But he's quickest today. Bortolotti with a 138.184. Thomas Preining, the driver that pipped into the championship last year, 138.405. Second quickest. just over 2/10 behind, and only 14 thousandths slower than Thomas was his teammate Ayenjin Nguyen, who's had an excellent day. Quickest in the wet, third quickest in the dry, 1:38.419. Then Bortolotti's teammate Nicky Tim, 1:38.829, fourth place. And then the Ferrari of Thierry Vermeulen, fifth. Ricardo Feller in the Audi in sixth. Max Powell snuck up to seventh place late on in that session. Eighth, Marco Wittmann, who had an off in the first free practice. And then ninth and 10th from Pereira, and an excellent effort from Ben Durr in the first of the McLarens. Luca Engstler was 11th. René Rast, who was up near the front for most of that session, wound up 12th. Jack Aitken's best lap of the session was at the end, 13th. Kelvin van der Linde, 14th. And then that's the driver second in the championship. Arjun Maini, remember, was fastest for much of that session on the drying track, wound up 15th. 2.1 seconds off the ultimate pace. Clement Schmidt 16th, Jules Gunon 17th, Sheldon van der Linde 18th. He had an off in this session. And then 19th, Maro Engel, the driver, third in the standings, with Lucas Auer, his teammate, in 20th. They were first and second at one point in that session, but they wind up the slowest two in free practice two. So that is the conclusion of the final practice of this final weekend of DTM 2024. Coming up tomorrow morning, qualifying, the all-important qualifying session for race one. And that gets underway at 9:30 local time. We'll be on air at 9:25 to talk you through that. The race comes up at 1:30. And there is the man that will lead the standings going into the final 2 days of DTM 2024. And he leads Friday with the fastest lap in free practice of 1:38.184. From me, Chris Hartley, and Brian Oliver in the commentary box. That's it from us today. Hope you've enjoyed our coverage. Thanks very much for joining us from wherever you are in the world, and we'll speak to you all again tomorrow for the first of the race days here at Hockenheim. The season finale promises to be an absolute classic, and Mirko Bortolotti is absolutely proving to be the man to beat so far here at Hockenheim. That's it from us. We'll leave you with a look at Mirko Bortolotti's fastest lap of the session, which came right at the end of the session. This was it as he goes charging then on the way into turn one at 180 kilometres an hour, fourth gear, rattle the curves, accelerate up to 240 kilometres an hour, fifth gear, and then slow it down, hard on the brakes, second gear through the Bernie Eccleston curve, 80 kilometres an hour, out of that through the right-left flick at turns 3 and 4. That's the end of the first sector, and now you are absolutely flat out through the Parabolica. Look at this, absolutely flat out, fifth gear, 265 kilometres an hour. Hang on for dear life, and then hold your breath, because now you're going to stand on the brakes as you go down into turn 6, the Spitzkurve, down to second gear, 55 kilometres an hour. Accelerate out of there. That's the end of sector sector 2, sorry. They come through the penalty zone area through turn 7 at 215 kilometres an hour, and then accelerate out through the next twisty-turny section into turns 8, 9, 10 and 11. 8 the left, 9, 10 and 11 lead you out then onto the back straight, the end of the second sector. And then from third gear, 145 kilometres an hour, you go up to 220 kilometres an hour. Fourth gear, hold fourth, 165 kilometres an hour through the Mobile 1 curve. Don't run wide, there's a gravel trap awaiting. Into the Sachs curve, then you go down to second gear again, 90 kilometres an hour in front of the grandstands. Accelerate to third, 145, the left at turn 14. The right flick at turn 15, and then you come back on yourself through turn 16, and the final turn at 17, 130 kilometres an hour, third gear out of the subcurve, and that was a 1:38.184 second lap here at the Hockenheimring. We'll go quicker than that tomorrow with qualifying coming up at 9:30. So hope you've enjoyed our coverage. We'll have a big weekend coming up for you, starting tomorrow morning with that first qualifying session. Thanks very much for watching. From Brian Oliver and me, Chris Hartley, goodbye for now.